Good morning to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and discussion time now, about 8:18 a.m. Eastern Time on August 29th, the 14-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. That was today, 14 years ago, and that is when our unmanned camera project really began. I actually cover this in our 2018 documentary. That's available on Amazon Prime. Just search for Tracking the Hurricanes 2018, and you can learn more about that. Hard to believe it's been 14 years already since Katrina, and boy, how far has our camera project and other technology evolved since that time. And of course, now we are tracking Hurricane Dorian, and the big question is, will that become another Katrina type track? Don't ever want to compare something and saying, oh, it could be another Katrina, but would it have a similar track? Katrina got started up in the Bahamas with its genesis from a couple of tropical waves way back then that finally came together in the Bahamas, and it came into South Florida here, dipped kind of to the southwest, made that turn, and came up well, not quite that far east, but that's the general idea. And the thing is that everybody remembers the trek across Florida before making that turn, more like that. And, you know, is Dorian going to do something similar? And we're all able to see the track models. They're not hidden. And so people have a lot of questions, and people get nervous. And in the wrong context, it can make people unnecessarily stressed out. So I'm going to try to answer a few questions and, more importantly, give you an idea of what to look for. I call that the keys to the game. I enjoy college basketball. That's my main sport that I really like to watch. And before any game, especially a very big, important game, they have experts that come on and they give you the keys to the game. Team A, if they do this, this, and this, they could win. Team B, if they do these things, they could end up winning. And while sports and hurricanes have nothing to do with each other at all, the analogies are still at least valid. In that sense, they do have something to do with each other. And I try to break this down into simple terms. So first of all, Dorian, still very well organized overall, although an upper level low in the vicinity, you can see that upper level low spinning over here, is inducing southwesterly shear on the system, but that's going to change over the course of the day, and Dorian is going to move into an environment over in this area that is going to be very favorable for strengthening, and this should become a major hurricane, meaning that it'll be a Category 3 or higher. Ocean heat content values all along this area are very high, and untapped, that ocean heat content is very warm all the way up here off the coast of the Carolinas. Should that matter with Dorian or another hurricane down the road, you know, you never know. It's only late August. We still have, you know, basically 45 to 60 days to go in the peak time of the hurricane season, but we'll worry about that later. Right now, we have enough on our plate with Dorian. So I want to show you this very important tweet here from Alan Huffman. And you say, well, who is that? So he is a meteorologist with 19 years of experience. So this guy went to NC State, speaking of college basketball. And, well, you got State, Duke, Carolina, and others in the Tobacco Road area, as we call it. But just wanting to show you who this is, okay, that he knows what he's talking about, and he's very good at plotting these maps. And I am a geographer. I am not a degreed meteorologist. I do have meteorological training, climatology, statistics, geography, earth science, you name it. But I have a different discipline than does Alan Huffman or Levi Cowan as examples. And just pointing this out so you know, well, who is that? So Alan, if you get a bunch of new followers today, you're welcome. There you go. I love sharing other people's knowledge. I think that's extremely important I make it clear, I hope so, and if not, I'll do it again, that I don't know everything. And when I do know everything, I'm going to retire and take up something else entirely. All right, so what are we looking at? So this is really important. This is the track from yesterday's 12Z run, the morning run of the ECMWF ensemble tracks. So that's all of the members of the ECMWF family and their possibilities. So you have one operational model, and then you've got the ensemble members that take different variables into consideration. It's all very complex as to how that's calculated, but it's the what-if scenario. And so the bottom line for all of us watching, yesterday at 12Z, the ensemble envelope was generally this idea of across Florida, and a lot of those members, each of these lines is a different ensemble member. They ended up, a lot of them, in the Gulf of Mexico and implying a threat. Some of these as far west as Texas, plenty of these into southeast Louisiana, etc. A lot of them were up into the Florida Panhandle, and some of them fairly far to the south. So that's the overall guidance from yesterday. You can clearly see, as I shade it in here, fill it in with this yellow, that was your general envelope yesterday. Okay, so the beauty of this is I can click on this and show you last night's change. All right, see how this windshield wipers, let's just stop it, this little GIF animation, to last night. Notice what's happened. A pretty remarkable shift, and we now have two camps. One camp, very tightly clustered, that spreads out a little bit here into Florida, and then some of them still come across. There are a few that still make it out into the Gulf substantially, but more that turn it up into the peninsula. And then this secondary camp that's up here towards North Carolina, and some of them imply curving out to sea. Now there are 51 ensemble members, and I could try to count each of these. You can see that there's a few in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's just be real generous and say that there's 12 ensemble members in here, I'm just guessing, that turn north well before Florida. The rest of them still bring it into Florida. So now let's just look at the animation that he has put together. Maybe. I guess we have to reload the page. That's fine. Sometimes the internet lets you down. Luckily, I don't follow 5,000 people, so it's not extremely difficult to go find this stuff again. I know it's in here somewhere. There it is. All right. Thanks for bearing with me. So you see, 12Z, 0Z, 12Z, 0Z. Look how it flips. And this is very helpful to give you an idea of changes within that time frame. Yesterday's morning run versus last night's overnight run, okay? And you also notice the overnight run, the short term in here is a much tighter envelope, the tightly packed clustering. And it's worthy to note as well that second run there, the 0Z run, and we'll stop it right there, does have a tighter envelope coming into Florida. All right, so if we go back and play it again, notice how it's more spread out. Let's just see if it does better if I do this. Yep, it's more spread out yesterday, last night, yesterday, last night. You see that? It's more spread out yesterday. That's yesterday versus last night. You see? So while there are certainly these members that are taking it up into the southeast coastal waters, more of the members are clustered and in agreement into Florida, if that makes any sense. I think it does. You can see that it was loosely like spread out more yesterday, but last night even more tightly clustered towards Florida. But the wild card, you then introduce this group up here that is seeing much less Atlantic ridge. In fact, they would be sensing some type of a break in the ridge of high pressure that would allow Dorian. You would think there's high pressure here, probably some kind of a trough that goes by, and then high pressure out to the west. And then this is implying some kind of an escape route for Dorian. You know, and some of these suggest that it wouldn't hit anybody. Wouldn't that be remarkable after all of this anxiety? So there's that. Now I want to show you a way to visualize this. One of our good friends and supporters, Steve, we call him Delaware Steve, posted this, and you get an idea of the strength of the ridge here at 72 hours. This is the ECMWF on the left over here. Let me change my color scheme. There we go. This is the Euro, and this is the GFS at 500 millibars in the atmosphere. It's just a layer of the atmosphere to show this large balloon, water balloon, if you will. That's what I like to think of it as, of high pressure. All right, same thing. Euro on the left, GFS on the right at 72 hours. This is a very large, thick water balloon. This is a very small water balloon. I say they're water balloons because the atmosphere is a fluid dynamics here. It's not, you can't say that Dorian is a golf ball or solid. You know, it's not a block of wood. It's also fluid. And so the fluids interact with each other. So this shows very clearly, very strong, solid ridge on the Euro, not so strong and solid on the GFS. Very, very easy to visualize that. Now we can go into, well, why is that the case? But I'm not going to, because it's complicated. I want to break this down in simple terms. So at 72 hours, this is a critical time frame, because after this, it's all a matter of, you know, does this stay intact and even expand or grow? If it does, Dorian will go more south and west. If it kind of stays like this or retreats even more, at the 72-hour point, Dorian could then find a way to move farther to the north. Now, let's look at the GFS ensembles. Now, this is a little harder to look at because it's the way the map scale is and so forth. It's just a lot of clutter down here over Florida. This is from the overnight run, the 0Z run. Couple things to point out. You can see the shape of the Atlantic ridge kind of showing up in here because all of the tracks curve around that in one way or another. Very interesting, the GFS has 20 ensemble members, and of course the operational, which is like the main version, and then you've got all of its compadres with these ensemble members. Interesting, there's more members of the Euro, almost by a factor of 3, right? There's 51, well, 2.5, something like that. And notice the GFS has only a couple of members up here that go north. There's less overall members than the Euro, so that's got to be taken into account. But the general envelope, that's what I like to look at. The envelope, if you shape it out, is into Florida, with a lot of them over here into the Gulf. Okay? So that's interesting, because the GFS operational is the one, that's what we're looking at here. This is the operational. At 72 hours out, has a little bit less ridge here than the Euro. But the ensemble package seems to imply more ridging because it's got this lean over here firmly into Florida. And then some variation of going into the Gulf of Mexico with a curvature into the southeast United States as probably a significant rainmaker and severe weather producer, etc. All the ugliness that comes with that. So there you go. That's what we're looking at from the two major models That's my alarm. Time to get up, Mark. That's from the two major models that we are typically watching, the European model and the GFS. There are others, the UK Met, the Canadian, the Japanese. I mean, there's a lot of global models out there. We could be here for 2 hours. I want to try to keep this fairly brief. So that's the look at that. My plans, I'm currently in Daytona Beach. And by the way, I don't have the camera turned on today because I only got up about 30 minutes ago and I look like a truck ran over me. And I'm just sparing you that, okay? I try to appear on camera because I like to talk to you and not at you. But anyhow, I am in Daytona Beach. Now let me explain as succinctly as I can. I went to Puerto Rico and I met up with Brent, one of our assistants, and he's also one of our crowdfunding patrons. And he and I, working with another patron down there, a great guy named Carlos, and we set up equipment in Puerto Rico. And then Brent and I decided to leave yesterday at almost 2 in the afternoon. We were supposed to leave this morning, which I now see that we could have done that, but we weren't sure as to Dorian's impacts. We didn't want to get stuck in Puerto Rico and miss whatever happened. It was the right move. But we went to Puerto Rico, we set up some equipment. Not much happened at all in Puerto Rico. I get that. And people can second guess, oh, you went down there for nothing. I disagree. This is my job. This is what I get paid to do. This is what our patrons support me to do. When I work with the Weather Channel, they expect that I get off my butt and go do stuff. And I enjoy it. I enjoy learning. I enjoy meeting new people and testing our equipment. And it worked very well in Puerto Rico. And we had the assistance of Carlos. And that is a great contact for the future. So forth and so on. So what we did is we flew back to Miami because it was only $133. Picked up a Chevy Suburban, woohoo, and a really nice one, very big and roomy, and it was only like $550 plus insurance, which is like, whoo, and that's pretty cheap. That was cheaper than changing everything and flying back to Wilmington yesterday. And so that's why we started in Miami. Overall, the economics were better. So now we have our SUV, and we're headed home, my home, to Wilmington. Brent is with me, and we will load up and get equipment ready and do whatever, and we'll go wherever we need to go. I'm supposed to return the Chevy Suburban to Jacksonville, Florida when this is all over. Then I'll figure out how to get home from there. That's for me to worry about later. But that's what we're doing. That's why I'm in Daytona Beach. We needed a vehicle. We got one. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah, we got a drive ahead of us, but that's where we can do a lot of planning and looking at things and, working. People do it all the time. You fly to Japan for a big business meeting. You work while you're on the plane. Whatever. All right, so there you go. We'll get back home, get things ready, and head out. Patreon, I talk about this frequently. This is where I'm focusing most of my efforts in terms of posting. HurricaneTrack.com is kind of like the brand. And, I still do stuff there, and I'll just show you what the website, there's the homepage to HurricaneTrack.com, but instead of putting a blog here and a video update on YouTube and going and doing something on Patreon, that could take up time that I could use doing other things that are important. So I'm combining everything on Patreon. That's the best way. So a lot of this will be available at zero cost, these posts. Some of them will be public. You can just go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. That's the brand. And a lot of my stuff will be public. You can see there, I can do blogs, I can post videos, links, I can interact with everybody. Are you kidding me? This is like Hurricane Track encapsulated into this new universe of social media and crowdfunding. It's freaking perfect. And so people can choose these tiers for as little as $1 a month, and it all adds up. Absolutely. These dollar people, if just a quarter of my total followers between Twitter and YouTube, and Facebook, did the dollar, I wouldn't have to worry about funding. I mean, honestly, I could do so much. and we're getting there. Don't let me sound like I'm complaining. Anyway, $10 is the access to get on pretty much everything we've got, and then you can go higher from there if you can afford to do so. This is the beauty of crowdfunding, and you can adjust these. We even have what I call the bucket list, that if you really want to join up and do something incredible, you can do that, and you can actually go with us in person. And that's what Brent did. There's Brent right there. That's Carlos right there, and they are patrons. Brent joined up last year at the $1,000 level, and he did. He was in the position. He always wanted to do something with hurricanes. He owns his own business in the Virgin Islands. Now he is a big-time supporter and an active participant. If you invest in something and you participate actively, that's great. But my point is, this is what I'm doing with Patreon, and it is fantastic. So follow it. You don't have to contribute to get some content. If you do contribute and you're able to, that helps us. We all greatly appreciate it, because everybody benefits at the end of the day, because it allows us to advance the science. It continues to allow me to have this as my career, and I appreciate that. And I'll put a link to it in the description, but there it is, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. All right, there you go. There's my commercial. I hate talking about funding, but if I don't do it, I can't afford to do this. I'm going to be leaving here, hopefully within the hour. I got to make sure Brent is awake. And we're going to get on the road, head back home to North Carolina, start getting ready. As we travel, I will post stuff to Patreon and Twitter. That's my main areas to post, as well as YouTube. So follow along at HurricaneTrack. That's the brand. YouTube.com/HurricaneTrack. If you're watching this, you should already know that. And I will keep you updated, all right? Lots to track, lots to keep up with, and I'll help every step of the way that I can. From Daytona Beach, Florida, where I might be again in a few days, who knows? I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always from watching from whatever device you are doing so from. I appreciate it more than you know. I'll be back with more for you throughout the day.